Sarah Matthews had always been the heart of her family, the one who remembered everyone's birthdays, organized holiday gatherings, and kept the family bonds strong. At 28, she worked as a marketing coordinator, lived in a cozy apartment downtown, and maintained close relationships with her younger sister Emma and their parents. When Emma announced her engagement to David, a kind-hearted teacher she'd been dating for 3 years, Sarah was overjoyed. "I can't believe my little sister is getting married," Sarah exclaimed, pulling Emma into a tight hug at the family dinner where the announcement was made. Their mother, Patricia, smiled warmly, while their father, Robert, raised his glass in celebration. "And I want you to be my maid of honor, Sarah. I can't imagine anyone else standing beside me on the most important day of my life," Emma said, tears glistening in her eyes. Sarah felt her heart swell with pride and love. "Of course. We're going to plan the most beautiful wedding ever." In the weeks that followed, Sarah threw herself into wedding planning with infectious enthusiasm. She created detailed spreadsheets, researched vendors, and spent hours on Pinterest gathering inspiration. Emma seemed grateful but somewhat overwhelmed by all the decisions ahead. That's when Patricia began stepping in more frequently. "Oh, Sarah, I found this wonderful florist," Patricia would say, showing up at Sarah's apartment with brochures. "I've already made an appointment for us to meet with them tomorrow." At first, Sarah appreciated her mother's involvement. Patricia had excellent taste and connections from her years in the local social scene. But gradually, Sarah noticed that her own suggestions were being politely dismissed or overlooked. "Mom, I found 3 amazing photographers within Emma's budget," Sarah said during one family meeting. "That's nice, dear, but I've already contacted Rebecca Sterling. You remember her from the country club? She's giving us a family discount," Patricia replied, barely glancing at Sarah's carefully researched options. Sarah felt a small pang of frustration but brushed it aside. This was about Emma's happiness, not her own ego. Then came the announcement that made Sarah's stomach drop. During a casual family barbecue, Patricia mentioned that Emma's cousin Melissa would be helping with the wedding planning. "Melissa has such wonderful connections in the wedding industry through her event planning business," Patricia explained to the gathered relatives. "She's graciously offered to help coordinate everything." Sarah watched as Melissa, Patricia's sister's daughter, smiled modestly and accepted congratulations for her generosity. Melissa was successful, polished, and had always been Patricia's favorite niece, something that had created subtle tension in family gatherings over the years. "But I'm already handling the planning," Sarah said quietly to Emma later that evening. "I thought we were doing this together." Emma looked uncomfortable. "I know, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. Melissa is just going to help with some of the vendor negotiations and logistics. You're still my maid of honor, Sarah." Despite her unease, Sarah continued pouring her heart and savings into the wedding. She put down deposits for the bachelor and bachelorette parties, researched and booked the honeymoon as her gift to the couple, and even started shopping for her maid of honor dress. But as the weeks passed, Sarah began to feel increasingly sidelined. She would arrive at family meetings to find decisions had already been made without her input. When she suggested activities for the bachelorette party, she was told Melissa had already arranged everything. Most painfully, when Emma went dress shopping, Sarah discovered the appointment through a social media post. She hadn't been invited. "I thought you were busy with work," Emma said when Sarah confronted her about missing the dress appointment. "Mom said you mentioned being overwhelmed." Sarah felt confused and hurt. She had never said anything about being overwhelmed. In fact, she had specifically cleared her schedule for wedding activities. The breaking point came when Sarah overheard a phone conversation between Patricia and her sister, Aunt Linda, Melissa's mother. "Sarah means well, but she's becoming quite controlling about the wedding," Patricia was saying. "She's questioning every decision and making Emma stressed. Melissa is so much more experienced with these things." Sarah stood frozen in the hallway, feeling like she'd been physically struck. Controlling? She had been nothing but supportive and helpful. Every suggestion she made came from love and a desire to make Emma's day perfect. When she tried to talk to Emma about what she'd overheard, her sister seemed distracted and dismissive. "Sarah, you're being too sensitive. Mom didn't mean anything by it." Everyone's just stressed about the wedding. But the pattern continued. Sarah watched as Melissa took over more responsibilities, as Patricia made decisions without consulting her, and as her role seemed to shrink despite her title as maid of honor. The final blow came during what Patricia called a family meeting to finalize wedding details. Sarah arrived at her parents' house to find Patricia, Emma, David, and Melissa seated around the dining room table looking serious. The atmosphere felt formal and cold. "Sarah, we need to talk," Patricia began, her voice taking on the tone she'd used when Sarah was a child in trouble. "There have been some concerns raised about the wedding planning process." Sarah looked around the table, her heart racing. Emma wouldn't meet her eyes. "We appreciate everything you've done," Melissa said smoothly, "but there seems to be some friction in the planning process. Emma has been feeling pressured and overwhelmed by some of the decisions being pushed on her." "What decisions?" Sarah asked, genuinely confused. "Emma, what is she talking about?" Emma finally looked up, but her expression was guarded. "Sarah, you have very strong opinions about everything. The flowers, the music, the venue setup. Sometimes it feels like you want this to be your wedding, not mine." Sarah felt the room spinning. "Emma, every suggestion I made was because you asked for my help. I researched everything you said you wanted. I never pushed anything on you. We think it would be best if you stepped back from the planning responsibilities," Patricia said firmly. "Of course, you're still welcome to attend as a guest, but Melissa will take over the maid of honor duties. She has the experience and connections to ensure everything goes smoothly." The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. She looked around the table at these people she loved, searching for any sign of support or understanding. David looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Emma stared at her hands. Melissa maintained a sympathetic but resolute expression. "You're removing me from my sister's wedding?" Sarah's voice came out as barely a whisper. "We're not removing you," Patricia said. "We're just restructuring responsibilities to reduce stress for everyone involved." Sarah stood up slowly, feeling like she might be sick. "Emma, is this really what you want?" Emma's silence was answer enough. That night, Sarah cried harder than she had since childhood. She called her best friend, Jamie, who listened in shock and outrage. "This is insane, Sarah. You've been nothing but supportive and generous. Something doesn't add up here." Through her tears, Sarah began to take practical steps. She cancelled the honeymoon reservation she had made and paid for, withdrawing the $5,000 gift. She also discovered that someone had been using her credit card information for wedding-related purchases, small amounts that she initially assumed were legitimate expenses she had forgotten about. When she called the credit card company, she learned the charges were coming from vendors she had never contacted. As she dealt with the financial irregularities, Sarah's phone rang. It was her Aunt Carol, Patricia's younger sister, who had always been the family peacekeeper. "Sarah, honey, I heard what happened, and I need to tell you something. This isn't the first time Patricia has done something like this." What Carol revealed over the next hour changed everything Sarah thought she knew about her family dynamics. Patricia had a long history of manipulation and control, particularly when it came to events and celebrations. She had similarly interfered in Carol's own wedding years ago, spreading lies about Carol's best friend to get her removed from the wedding party. "Your mother has always been jealous of close relationships that don't center around her," Carol explained. "She saw how close you and Emma were, and she couldn't stand not being the most important woman in Emma's wedding. Melissa is her instrument. She can control Melissa in a way she can't control you." Carol also revealed that she had overheard Patricia coaching Emma on what to say to Sarah, feeding her lines about Sarah being controlling and overwhelming. "Emma loves you, Sarah, but she's young and she's been manipulated. Patricia has been filling her head with doubts about your motives for months." The next revelation came from an unexpected source. David, Emma's fiancé, called Sarah 2 days later. "Sarah, I need to see you. There's something you need to know." They met at a coffee shop downtown, where David looked uncomfortable but determined. "I found something on Emma's phone," he said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. Screenshots of text messages. Sarah looked down at printed conversations between Patricia and Melissa. Her blood ran cold as she read fabricated text messages that allegedly came from Sarah, messages where Sarah complained about Emma's choices, criticized David, and made demands about the wedding that Sarah had never made. Emma showed me these weeks ago, saying you had been sending her stressful messages, David explained. But I know you, Sarah. Some of these don't sound like how you talk. So I checked the metadata. These messages were created using a fake messaging app. Sarah stared at the evidence of her mother's deception, feeling a mixture of vindication and heartbreak. Patricia had orchestrated an elaborate campaign to turn Emma against her. There's more, David continued. I've been keeping track of the credit card charges too, because Emma mentioned some expenses seemed higher than expected. Melissa has been inflating vendor costs and pocketing the difference. She's been stealing from the wedding budget. Armed with this evidence, Sarah knew she had to approach Emma carefully. Her sister had been manipulated, not malicious. Sarah asked David to arrange a meeting between just the two sisters. They met at Emma's apartment on a quiet Sunday afternoon. Emma looked tired and stressed, and Sarah's heart ached seeing her sister's obvious unhappiness. Emma, I need you to see something, Sarah said gently, placing the evidence on the coffee table. I'm not here to attack you or make demands. I just want you to see the truth. As Emma examined the fake messages and financial records, her face went through a series of emotions: confusion, recognition, horror, and finally, devastation. Oh my God, Sarah. Oh my God, what have I done? Emma broke down crying. I'm so sorry. I believed her. I actually believed Mom when she said you were trying to take over my wedding. Sarah moved to sit beside her sister, wrapping her arms around her. Emma, this isn't your fault. Mom is very good at manipulation. She had me questioning myself too. Emma pulled back to look at her sister. You must hate me. I could never hate you, Sarah said firmly. You're my sister, and I love you. We were both victims of Mom's manipulation. Together, they went through months of wedding planning, identifying how Patricia had systematically undermined Sarah's involvement while positioning Melissa as the reliable alternative. They saw how every suggestion Sarah made was later presented by Melissa as her own idea, how Patricia had created false narratives about Sarah's behavior, and how Emma had been gradually isolated from her sister's genuine support. I want you back as my maid of honor, Emma said through her tears. I want my sister beside me on my wedding day, not Melissa. Will you forgive me? Of course, Sarah said. But Emma, we need to confront Mom and Melissa about this. They can't be allowed to get away with the lies and the theft. Emma nodded, her jaw setting with determination. You're right. I'm done being manipulated. The confrontation took place the following weekend at the family home. Emma had called a family meeting, telling Patricia and Melissa they needed to finalize some wedding details. Sarah arrived with David, carrying a folder of evidence. Patricia immediately bristled at Sarah's presence. Emma, I thought we agreed that Sarah would step back from wedding planning to reduce everyone's stress. Actually, Mom, that was your decision based on lies, Emma said, her voice stronger than Sarah had heard it in months. Sarah, show them what we found. Sarah placed the printed fake messages on the dining room table. Patricia's face went pale, while Melissa shifted uncomfortably in her chair. These are fake text messages created to make me look bad, Sarah explained calmly. Messages that never existed, designed to turn Emma against me. That's ridiculous, Patricia said, but her voice lacked conviction. Why would anyone do such a thing? Because you wanted to control Emma's wedding, Sarah continued. You couldn't stand that Emma chose me as her maid of honor instead of asking you to plan everything. So you systematically destroyed my relationship with my sister to get what you wanted. Emma found her voice. Mom, I trusted you. I believed you when you said Sarah was being controlling and overwhelming. I let you convince me to hurt my sister because I thought you were protecting me. David stepped forward and placed the financial records on the table. There's also the matter of the vendor overcharges and the unauthorized use of Sarah's credit card information. Melissa finally spoke, her polished composure cracking. I don't know what you're talking about. I've been helping coordinate vendors as a favor to the family. A favor that involved inflating costs and keeping the difference. Sarah asked. We have records, Melissa. The vendors confirmed the actual costs versus what you told Emma. Patricia stood up abruptly. This is all a misunderstanding. Sarah, you're being dramatic and vindictive because you didn't get your way. No, Mom, Emma said firmly. This stops now. I've seen the evidence. I know what you did, and I know what Melissa did. You manipulated me into hurting my sister, and you stole money from my wedding budget. The room fell silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Patricia looked around the table, realizing that her control over the situation had completely evaporated. I was trying to help, she said weakly. Sarah was getting too involved, and I thought Melissa could handle things more professionally. By creating fake evidence and turning Emma against me? Sarah asked. By stealing money? That's not help, Mom. That's manipulation and fraud. Robert, who had been quiet during the confrontation, finally spoke. Patricia, this behavior is unacceptable. Melissa, you need to return the money you took, and you're no longer involved in the wedding planning. Dad, Patricia began. No, Robert said firmly. This ends now. Sarah is Emma's maid of honor, as Emma originally wanted. You will apologize to both of your daughters for the pain you've caused, and we're going to discuss getting family counseling to address these issues. Patricia looked like she wanted to argue further, but the unified front from the rest of the family made it clear that her manipulative tactics would no longer work. Melissa quietly agreed to return the stolen money and removed herself from wedding planning. Patricia gave a grudging apology, though it was clear she felt more defeated than genuinely remorseful. With the truth revealed and boundaries established, Emma and Sarah worked together to finalize the wedding plans. It was too late to undo some of the damage. Some vendors couldn't be changed, and some of Sarah's original ideas had to be abandoned due to time constraints. But the sisters found joy in planning together again, and their relationship began to heal. The wedding day dawned bright and beautiful. Emma looked radiant in her dress, and Sarah felt proud and honored to stand beside her sister as she married David. Patricia attended the wedding but maintained a subdued presence, clearly understanding that her manipulative behavior had consequences. During her maid of honor speech, Sarah spoke about the importance of forgiveness, family, and the bonds that can survive even the deepest betrayals. Emma and I have been through a lot together, including some recent challenges that tested our relationship, Sarah said, looking out at the gathered family and friends. But I've learned that love isn't about perfection, it's about choosing each other again and again, even when it's hard. Emma, I'm so proud to be your sister and to stand beside you today. Emma wiped away tears as the guests applauded, and Sarah felt a sense of closure and new beginning. In the months following the wedding, the family began attending counseling sessions together. Patricia struggled with accepting responsibility for her behavior, but gradually began to acknowledge the harm she had caused. She learned about her patterns of control and manipulation, and while change was slow, she made efforts to respect boundaries and rebuild trust. Sarah and Emma's relationship grew stronger than ever. They had survived a deliberate attempt to destroy their bond, and they emerged with a deeper understanding of each other and the importance of direct communication. Sarah also began setting healthier boundaries in all her relationships. She learned to trust her instincts when something felt off, and she became more aware of manipulative behavior in others. The experience, while painful, taught her valuable lessons about self-worth and the importance of standing up for herself. 6 months after the wedding, Sarah met Marcus, a kind and honest man who worked in her building. Their relationship developed slowly and naturally, built on open communication and mutual respect, qualities Sarah now valued more than ever. When Sarah and Marcus got engaged a year later, Emma was overjoyed to return the favor and serve as Sarah's maid of honor. This time, Patricia was given specific, limited responsibilities and was closely supervised by both sisters. The family had learned that love sometimes requires difficult conversations, firm boundaries, and the courage to confront uncomfortable truths. They had also learned that healing is possible, even from deep betrayals, when people are willing to do the hard work of rebuilding trust. Sarah's story became one of resilience, the power of truth, and the unbreakable bond between sisters who chose to fight for their relationship instead of letting manipulation tear them apart. It was a reminder that families, like all relationships, require constant nurturing, honest communication, and the willingness to protect the people we love from those who would harm them, even when those harmful people are family members themselves. The wedding photos from both Emma's and Sarah's weddings would forever serve as reminders of what they had overcome together, and the strength they had found in choosing love over manipulation, truth over comfortable lies, and each other over the divisive forces that had tried to tear them apart.